not an expert on anything, much like all the other people that you've heard. I'm just a mother, a working mother, and I've had a few experiences that hopefully you can learn from. I'll share one experience with you. And today I just want to talk about us. I want to talk about how, as women, we are natural caretakers, and we tend to, take care of everybody around us, and sometimes we forget about ourselves, and that's what happened to me. And I also want to talk about being an advocate. And I find for myself that I have no problem advocating for other people and advocating for my children, strangers, and sometimes I forget about myself in that process. And I've really learned in the last 2.5 years how to take better care of myself and how to listen to myself and how to be an advocate for myself, a better advocate. And I think it's really important for us to all be advocates, not only for our families, but for ourselves. Again, I'm not an expert, but, when I had kids, it changed everything for me. And I don't know about you guys, but I was always a worrier, but when I had kids, my worry level catapulted. And I think my biggest fear was that something was going to happen to my children. And my next biggest fear was that something was going to happen to me and I wouldn't see my kids anymore. That was the big one for me. So these are my kids. This is Zoe. She's just turned 6, and Beckett's in the middle. He just turned 7. His teeth are coming in now. This was taken a little while ago. And that's Poppy, and Poppy just turned 4. So I'm going to take you back to 2011. So in January 2011, I started my new job, and it was a big deal. It was announced that I got the job anchoring the news on CTV while I was on maternity leave with Poppy. And when I had Poppy, I lost a lot of blood. And I seemed to recover okay, and that was in about, May, I sort of got myself back in working order. But by August of 2011, I was, into my first year of anchoring. And I was so tired all the time, like beyond tired. And everybody just kept saying to me, well, you're a working mom, you have 3 kids, of course you're tired. And I thought, God, if every woman feels the way I feel right now, how are we even functioning? Because I was so tired, and I started to feel like a failure because I was so tired, and I was having a very hard time keeping it together. I literally would come home from work, sit on the couch, my husband would make me dinner, and then I would fall asleep. Sometimes I'd fall asleep on the couch while he was making me dinner. And this went on for a while, and I finally had a blood test at about the end of August, and my hemoglobin was low. And just to sort of give you an idea, normal hemoglobin for a woman is, according to BC Biomed, is 115 to 160. That's normal hemoglobin, somewhere in there. And my normal was around 117. It was always on the lower end of normal. And when I had that first blood test, it was about 110. And so it wasn't outrageously low, but it was low. And I kept going for blood tests, and it kept going down and down and down. And finally, when it reached about 90-something, I started to see a hematologist. And so that was in about November of 2011. And it was just more blood tests, and he decided that in December of that year, he was going to send me for some iron infusions. And I was told the same thing by every healthcare practitioner that I saw. I was a mother, I was a full-time worker, and women bleed every month, so it's normal for them to not have high hemoglobin. All these things are, true. We do bleed every month, and I do have 3 kids, and I do work, but my blood was telling a different story for sure. And I was told to not worry about it. There's no history of anything in my family, and I was young. And I was insisting on, a colonoscopy, and they were like, there's no way, you don't need a colonoscopy, you're fine, you just need to, you need iron. And so I went for some iron infusions at VGH. And by that point, my hemoglobin was at about 82. And so I was really tired. And I remember the nurses saying to me, "Oh my God, 82, how are you getting out of bed?" And I said, "Oh, really? This isn't normal?" And they said, "No, my God. Like, most people at 82 wouldn't be able to even get out of bed." And I thought, okay, so that tells me something. She goes, "You know what, by tomorrow, after this iron," because it took 7 hours to have one iron infusion, and it was over 1,000 milligrams of iron, so it was like a heavy dose. She goes, "Tomorrow you are going to be a new person. You're not even going to believe it. You're going to feel so amazing." And I woke up the next day feeling the exact same way that I had felt the day before. This picture was taken in December of 2011. So they're much younger. And Poppy, my youngest, was 14 months old in this picture. By December, I was a mess. And my blood wasn't improving. And nobody was really sounding any alarms, except for me. And I kind of believed what everybody was telling me. Well, maybe this is just the way it is for me now. Maybe I need to slow down. Maybe I need to take better care of myself in order to get back to what is normal. I took 2 weeks off at Christmas time, and I was going back to work on January 3rd of 2012, and it was my 1-year anniversary at work for anchoring. And I woke up on January 3rd with the worst headache of my life. And I've had some bad headaches. But this was different. This was a headache that I'd never had before. And I was actually on my way to a naturopath because I was so desperate that, are there any naturopaths in the room? Are there? Good, because I hate naturopaths. But I just want to check first. I really do. So I thought, okay, well, my friends told me you need to go to a naturopath. They'll fix you up. It'll all be good. And so that's where I was going. I'd made an appointment to go see this woman who was a blood specialist, naturopath. And I woke up, worst headache. I got coffee. Nothing was helping. I drove for a half an hour to see her. I walked in. I said, "I have the worst headache of my life. Like I feel like I'm dying." And she said, "Okay, well, let's figure it out." And she pricked my finger and put it up on this amazing HD screen in her office. And she said, "Well, the good news is you're not bleeding anywhere." And I said, "Oh, how do you know?" And she said, "Well, your platelets would all be gathering up and you're not bleeding." She goes, "It's your liver." And I said, "My liver?" I said, "I just had a liver test. My liver was fine. I had an ultrasound on my liver." She goes, "It's your liver. Those doctors, traditional doctors, don't know what they're doing. They don't do the right liver test." And I said, "Okay." So $400 later, I had some tinctures for my liver, and I went to work, and I passed out at work. It was right before the news, and I took my phone with me. I don't know why. I never take my phone to the bathroom, but I felt so sick. And I had full TV makeup on, and I was as white could be. And I went and had lasagna, which I hate. I thought comfort food will fix this for me. Nothing was working. And I went to the washroom right before the news, and I thought, "Oh, God, I feel like I'm going to throw up." And I thought, no, I'm not going to throw up. So I sat down, and I remember I made a conscious effort to go into the wheelchair stall because I thought if I do need to throw up, like it would give me more room in there. And I sat down and I woke up. And when I woke up, I was completely slumped over. And I remember thinking, "Oh, that's so weird. I thought I was going to throw up, but I didn't. But I smell throw up." And I was trying to focus, and all I could see was the little tiles on the floor and my phone laying on the floor. And so I laid on the floor, and I phoned Mike Colleen, my co-anchor, at his desk, and I said, I need help. And somebody came in to help me, and they put me in a cab. I couldn't walk, I couldn't drive. And I went home, and my husband said, "You have food poisoning." It was a lasagna from the art gallery, I know it. And I said, "No, I don't think I have food poisoning." I said, like, something's wrong. And he goes, "No, you have food poisoning." I had food poisoning once at the Wicked Inish, and this exact same thing happened. And I said, "Okay, are you sure?" And I really wanted it to be food poisoning. And I won't get into too much detail, but there, because are you recording this? Yes. So I won't get into too much detail. But I laid in bed for 2 days, and every time I stood up, I got sick. I couldn't stand up, and so I was on the phone to my doctor and on the phone to my hematologist. And he said to me, "Okay, we need to do more tests." And I said, "Well, like what?" And he said, "Well, when's the last time you had a mammogram. And I said, well, I just had one. And as soon as he said that to me, I knew what he was thinking. He was thinking that I had like breast cancer or something. And I said, well, I just had one. He goes, I think we're going to need to do a bone marrow biopsy. And I said, what? And he goes, yeah, I just think we're going to have to do that. And I said, okay. And that the next morning, I got out of bed to go to the bathroom, and I took my phone with me. There's one lesson, take your phone with you to the bathroom. And I woke up, and I don't know what happened in that bathroom. I don't know what my husband saw when I could call him downstairs, and he came upstairs. I don't know, like, it was not good. Whatever happened in that bathroom was not good. And he had to clean me up, and he said, we have to call 911, which I refused to call 911 because I thought that I was, going to be okay. And my best friend came over, and I also didn't want my husband to come with me because my daughter had to go to a school assessment that day, and I wanted him to take her. And I remember as the ambulance showed up, and as they were wheeling me out the door, I was saying to my husband, just make sure Zoe, she wears her gray pants and put the Brett in her hair like this. And he's like, oh my God, are you serious right now? And I'm like, just make sure, don't try too hard, don't put her in a dress. And Salima and my girlfriend and I got into the ambulance, and it's very blurry, but that's me dying in the ER. And I had 8 blood transfusions as they tried to stabilize me because I was bleeding internally. And I was gushing blood at a rapid pace. And when they came in to do the blood test, he said to me, you need a transfusion. I said, no, I don't. I just had it done yesterday, and it was 82. And he said, no, you need a transfusion. And he left, and I had to sign all these papers. And I said to Salima, I said, what do you think my blood's at? And she said, I think it's like at 60. And I said, there's no way, because they do a blood transfusion apparently at 60. I said, no, it's got to be 70 something. And he came and he said, your hemoglobin's at 46. And as soon as he said that to me, I knew that I was in massive trouble, like big trouble. And so I spent all night getting blood. And as soon as they could, I did an endoscopy. So they were looking for the bleed, and they started at the top and worked their way down. And the next day they did a colonoscopy, which I had repeatedly asked for. And when they did the colonoscopy, there wasn't really much going on except for when they got to the very top of my large intestine, and they could see dried blood. And so they sent me for an emergency CT scan, and they saw a big tumor. And they came into my room and said, there's a big tumor in you, and it looks like it's on your uterus or your bladder. And it's serious, and we need to get it out right now. And so I was in such a daze. I couldn't believe like this was happening. And I went in for surgery. And I remember there's 2 things that are vivid for me. One, the surgeon came in, and he was Polish. And so his English was hard for me to understand, high on Ativan and other things. And he came in, he said, okay, we had another look, and it doesn't look as black box as we thought. And I'm like, what is a black box? Like, is that a coffin? Like, why is he saying that? And he said, your tumor is smooth, and it has its own blood system. And I'm like, okay. And then I got into the room, and, you're laying on the operating table, and they go to take my nail polish off. And I said, oh, it's shellac. And they said, they were like, what? And I said, you can't take that off. And I said, why? I said, you need UV light and some acetone. And they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. I said, am I your first patient with shellac nail polish on? And they said, yeah. And I said, because that's how they get your oxygen level, right? So anyways, they used my ear. So this was the next day. I cropped out my catheter because I didn't think you needed to see that. But they took out a 10-centimeter tumor out of my small intestine. And it turned out that it was a very rare form of, very rare cancer. 15 in a million people get it. Mostly senior citizens, which is weird. And it was terrifying. I spent 9 days in the hospital, and I didn't think of my kids once. And it was the only way I could survive, is to not think about them. I'm going to try not to cry, but I didn't have a phone with me, and I didn't have an iPad with me, or I didn't have my computer with me. I looked at nothing. I had to I pressed my pain button for hydromorphone. I was allowed to press it every 6 minutes, and I pressed it every 5.5 minutes until they finally took the button away from me. And I kept myself as drugged up as I possibly could so that I didn't have to think about anything because I thought I was going to die. And I didn't know what that tumor was. We had to wait 11 days for the pathology report. And they were excruciating, those 11 days. And so I laid in the hospital in my drunken, hazed world. Nobody knew I was there. I had very few visitors. And I tried to just get by. And I spent my entire time reevaluating everything and thinking about how I ignored the signs that my own body was telling me. And I listened to everybody around me when I knew in my core that they weren't right. I knew in my core they weren't right. But sometimes when you're trying to get something done and the professionals are telling you that, you're too young and there's no history and there's no, this was a random tumor. It's not, hereditary. It's random. 15 in a million people. But I knew that there was something wrong. So I spent my time planning birthday parties. That's what I did. I planned my kids' birthday parties. And we had good birthday parties that year. And we have good birthday parties every year because that's how I celebrate that I made it through this, is I have great birthday parties for my kids. So we make our own cakes and we have balloons and we have friends and we have family and we just have a great old time. And it's the only way that I got through those 9 days in the hospital. And, being an advocate is really hard. It's hard to do for yourself. I think it's really easy for us as women to do it for others and to do it for your children. I mean, I think that, for anybody that has a child in the room, I'm assuming most people do, it's easy for you to speak for your child and get what's right for your child. And I don't think that we at times listen to ourselves. So the things that I learned coming out of this was that nothing trumps my family ever. My job, nothing. It just doesn't. And everybody knows that. And I would rather quit my job than sacrifice my family. And they know that at work. And I have no qualms about telling anybody that at any time. I learned to say no more. It's still a work in progress because I'm not the best at it yet, but I have learned to say no more often because I believe that you're not a better person if you're busier. If the person next to you is busier than you are, it doesn't make them better. Busy is not a badge of honor. It's just not. The goal should be to be not busy, to spend more time with your family and your friends and the ones that mean the most to you, I think. And I learned to shut out the bullshit, really more than anything. And because there's a lot, especially when you're on television, there's a lot. And so I learned how to shut it all out and to really speak. I'm known to speak my mind. Not so much on television anymore. I'm not really allowed to do that so much. But outside of television, I sure do. And I was just talking to Cheryl, who I met earlier. I have an alias on Facebook. It's my grandma's name, and Estelle says whatever the fuck she wants. It's so liberating, right? And I learned to do things that I was so hung up on before. Like, I didn't want my kids to eat sweets too much, and I didn't want to, and we never used to do stuff like this. We never used to just walk down the street to Dairy Queen and enjoy Dairy Queen. And I would have never let my kids play with my makeup, ever. And so now we play with makeup whenever we want. I've really loosened up a lot because I think I was pretty tightly wound before, and I've learned to loosen up. And I will say too that nearly dying gave me balls. It gave me balls to do things that I would have never done before. And I was always a ballsy person. I don't think that anybody would say that I wasn't or that I didn't take risks or anything like that. But it's more about really speaking up for something that I believe in or fighting for something that I think is important. And not only for me, but for my family and for my friends and a lot of times for strangers. I have no problem doing that because it's not easy to be your own advocate. It's just not. It's not a natural thing to fight for yourself. I don't think. And so if you can't be your own advocate, you have to find somebody who can. And I'm available to be your advocate if you need one, because I'm really good at it now. And I'm better at being an advocate for others than I am for myself. But, you know, and the other thing I learned was life is precious. And we all know we're going to die. All of us know that. It's not a secret, right? We know we're going to die one day. But in order to protect ourselves, we don't think about it every waking moment. Otherwise, we'd never leave our house. I know we're going to die. I knocked on the door. I opened it up. I looked around, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying because more than anything, I didn't want to be the person in the photo on the wall. That's what I was scared of. I didn't want to be that person that, you know, my 14-month-old was never going to remember me. My son, you know, was never going to remember me. And my other daughter was never going to remember me. And that terrified me. So I know that it's precious. I know that, you know, we only get to do this once. And, you know, I just think that you need to enjoy the moments. Every moment. This is one of my favorite things, because I think it was really true for me. I don't know if it's true for you, but it was really true for me. You know, we wait all week for Friday. We wait all year for summer because summer's so fun. And a lot of us wait for our happiness. And our happiness is always right in front of us. It's in the moment. And, you know, you could wake up today and go, oh, man, it's raining. What a horrible, rotten day. It's a great day. We're here, and it's a fantastic day. And we're with each other. And I don't know. I hope that I gave you something to. I got the X. So I hope that I gave you something to walk away with today, and you can learn something from my life lesson. One of my life lessons. Thank you.
I'll do your video.